Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor. I do have my afternoon cup of coffee. It is Friday. I do have baseball games to deal with this weekend. So let's get this thing done so you can go off into your weekend. I hadn't shown crypto bull in a while. The XRP versus Bitcoin chart points to a massive breakout soon. I can only hope. He also did this one. The price history on the XRP chart shows $13 is just around the corner. Well, give me an SEC lawsuit settlement. And yeah, no doubt. I don't know what the chart does without that, but hopefully it does do something. Also wanted to remind you that this is an interesting tweet right here. This is what it's all about. Masterworks.io is one of my sponsors. And by the way, I'll put the link at the top of the description of this video. Since launching in 2017, Masterworks has acquired more than $500 million in artwork and sold 3 paintings, generating over 30% annualized net returns to investors. From 1995 to 2021, data shows that contemporary art prices outpaced the S&P 500 by 164%. Look, this painting sold 32%. This one, 33.8%, 31.7%. This is giving me exposure to a new asset that with returns that are not necessarily following everything else like the S&P or stocks. Gives me returns that can, one year you might have paintings do the best. Next year it might be real estate or equities or whatever. And so that is a smart way to look at things. All right, it's the way I look at things. Now, Janet Yellen, who I've always thought is pretty creepy, this was put up by Michael Saylor, the ultimate Bitcoin maxi. Listen to this.
I couldn't get through an interview without asking about crypto, but in particular, Russia just said that they would accept Bitcoin as a payment for their energy resources. What does that say to you about where we are in the crypto conversation?
Well, crypto is obviously grown by leaps and bounds, and it's now playing a significant role, not really so much in transactions, right, but in investment decisions of lots of Americans. And the president just issued a couple of weeks ago an executive order tasking us and other agencies with thinking about the regulation of crypto.
I mean, you're less skeptical about it than in previous. I mean, we've been talking about it together for a long time now, and I think you've had a skepticism about crypto technology.
I have a little bit of skepticism because there are, I think, valid concerns around it. Some have to do with financial stability, consumer investor protection, use for illicit transactions and other things. Right. On the other hand, there are benefits from crypto, and we recognize that innovation in the payment system can be a healthy thing. We would like to come out eventually with recommendations that will create a regulatory environment in which healthy innovation
and then finally.
Now, she's worried about Bitcoin and about the financial stability and all this, but she's not worried about the United States being $30 trillion in debt that has been heaped on by her and her ilk, her colleagues, the same people that think like she does that for years, decades. Print. And they think that's just fine because that's monetary policy. But cryptos, it's just a scary, dangerous thing. It's scary and dangerous because they can't control it or are worried about whether they can control it. Now, Nick Burafeta reminds us we have less than 1 day of supply of Ripple. They've got Ripple equity left on our platform. Whether you've been waiting to buy for your first time or to add to your holdings, time is of the essence. Visit Linqto.com, Linqto.com. I'll also put this at the top of the description. They're one of my sponsors. Okay, but you look, that ship's gonna, in my opinion, that ship is going to sail and be sold before you know it. And people, there's going to be a day, in my opinion, that people are like, you were able to buy Ripple? You bought Ripple stock back then? Are you kidding me? That's what I think is going to happen. Now, TAIG nailed this, knocked it out of the park. The same people we now know. Now, yesterday, I think, as I've said, and look, I don't want to keep picking on Warren Davidson, but I do have to cover a few things before we leave it behind. Yesterday, Warren Davidson, in my opinion, outed himself as a guy that isn't too fond of Ripple and XRP and what it represents. And what that means is I believe he outed himself as a Bitcoin Ethereum maxi. And it didn't take too long to start looking around to start making affiliations between him and the exact same freaking people that were there and engineered the Ethereum free pass behind closed doors with the SEC. Listen up. Here we go.
And I think you were saying some of them were like Fidelity, State Street, A16Z. Can you list some of the others?
Andreessen Horowitz.
The people he's naming are the people who met with him and helped to write the Token Taxonomy Act. TAIG found this a little while back.
And small firms, early stage startups like 10XTS, an Ohio company, and Filecoin was there from Consensus, so many of the use cases that you would look at and, big names in the space, but yeah, things like Fidelity, State Street, NASDAQ, sent, good representation to be a part of it. And that drew a great piece. So we really went there to listen, not necessarily to say, here's exactly what should be done. But the bill that we drafted afterwards became a nonpartisan bill, people across the political spectrum.
Now, it's important to note, I'm not saying to you that I believe Warren Davidson was in on this. No, it's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he may not have even known what these people were up to. But these people got the Ethereum and Bitcoin free pass, and ever since then they have that was to block out and not have a level playing field and block out the rest of the industry. It was responsible for it, that Hinman speech. Now, whether he knew about it, I don't know. But what we have found is that he's hanging out with the same people that did it, okay? All right, now, let me show you the next thing. And John Deaton weighed in on this again, and he says, I'm sure both, he's replying to this, Warren Davidson, Tom Emmer, we understand it's politics, but will there be a level playing field? And John Deaton says, I'm sure both congressmen are accustomed to dealing with a frustrated public. XRP holders got screwed. Representative Emmer publicly stated XRP is not a security. Under Representative Davidson's bill, XRP would not be considered a security. I remain confident an inquiry into the SEC will be made. And I said, I look forward to that SEC inquiry. So now, look, here's the important thing, folks. Regardless of what Warren Davidson knew about those people, that those were the same people, the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance and all that. Regardless of that, he now knows. That's what's important. So what does he do from here? John Deaton has put all the evidence of what's going on into his hands. What does he do now? That's what matters, because that is going to let you know exactly who this congressman is. And here he is again. I missed this when TAIG had put it out. That guy right there, I was pretty sure that's that Pat guy from Consensus. This guy, I thought this circle was for this guy, but I don't think it was. This is Ron Selkis. We know who that is. This is the guy I missed, because that, folks, is somebody you might remember. It's Steven Narioff, this guy, okay? I'm not worried about this because I think he may have been just joking. I'm not sure. I said it's not looking good at all, because I'm about to remind you who Steven Narioff is. Narioff is the guy in this clip. He's the guy who told the story of how he's the one that created this narrative of Ethereum as crypto fuel, and that they were working with the SEC in 2014 to figure out a way to make this thing not be a security. Watch.
But he said to me, he said, the problem is our lawyers are telling us this is an illegal securities offering.
Now, I want you to think about something here. In the Ripple case right now, Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson, their attorneys gave them a letter, or gave Chris Larson, I think, a letter, basically saying they didn't think it was a security. These guys, and the SEC was trying to scrutinize, or the SEC, if it had been advice that it was a security, Chris Larson and them would be over a barrel. These guys at Ethereum did get advice that Ethereum was a security, and the SEC's doing nothing to them. All right, listen to the rest of this.
It was. So I was charged with trying to figure out a very simple thing. Raise money and not go to prison. Right? Orange is not my best color, by the way. So we were, he held off, these guys are like wolves, right? I mean, the founding team of Ethereum wanted to move. And one of the guys actually even said to me, I don't really care about prison. I'm a Canadian citizen. And I said, can we somehow say that this is...
And by the way, we know that both Joseph Lubin and Vitalik Buterin are from Canada. I wonder if it was one of them that said they didn't care about going to prison.
Not a security, it's not a currency, but somehow this is a good, maybe service. Head of the SEC, a gentleman by the name of Joe Grunfest. If anybody's familiar with the SEC, he's probably the most prolific chairman of the SEC of the last 75 years. And sheepishly the next morning said, I said, after our third drink last night, we came up with this concept, and I said we, because I didn't want to say me, and I said, can we say this is a good, because it actually forms some kind of function if you have to send it and you have to use this gas to send it. And I said, I'm sure it doesn't work, right? Okay, that's fine. And I got a pause for about 10 seconds, ready to say that was the stupidest idea I've ever heard. And his response was, that's brilliant. And said,
so Stephen Narioff, he thought it was a dumb idea himself. And they're just trying to literally come up with some way that they can say Ethereum's not a security when they all know damn well it is. That's what we're talking about here.
I think that could actually work. Spoke to some folks at the SEC. They loved the idea. They thought that actually made a lot of sense. And that's the genesis of what's called today. Has somebody heard of what a utility coin?
Right. So they came up with enough BS. Now, TAIG also went and found out that Darren DeSoto accepts his donations in all of these proof-of-work-based tokens and Ethereum. So he said, quick, someone send Representative Soto a unique amount of Ethereum, and we will find his wallet address on Etherscan and find out how much Ethereum he's received as donations. The Ethereum Foundation wrote their token taxonomy. Conflicts of interest? ? Good question. Now watch this one. This is an interesting little video that was put out. Listen to this. You'll love this. Watch.
I have never seen anyone ever get away with anything at all, even once. Well, maybe you disagree. Maybe you think people get away with things all the time. I tell you, I've never seen it. What I see instead is that thing happens, right? Someone twists the fabric of reality. And they do it successfully because it doesn't snap back at them that moment. And then like 2 years later, something unravels and they get walloped and they think, oh my God, that's so unfair. And then we track it. It's like, well, what happened before that? This. Well, and then what? This. And then what? This. And then what? Oh, this. Oh, that's where it went wrong. Because you can't twist the fabric of reality without having it snap back. It doesn't work that way. And why would it? Because what are you going to do? Twist the fabric of reality? I don't think so.
That guy just described our journey on XRP Twitter for the last year. That is exactly what we have been through. It never made sense, and we pull this thread, and then this leads to this, and then more people come in, and then there's hundreds of people, and before you know it, reality has not been created at all as Joseph Lubin intended. Now, speaking of not being able to create reality, listen to these two people on Ethereum.
There's John Hoover on Twitter, right? And this guy is like brainiac lawyer of all time. And he's got some great posts on Ethereum, but there's one in particular that I'd have to go and find and send to you if you don't have it already. But it talks about all of the different transactions and basically the price tags of how much you're paying for fees versus how much you're actually sending or buying, right? Like the transaction volume of it. And lo and behold, the most expensive one in the whole world is Ethereum. So collectively, people pay more for Ethereum gas fees than they do actually buying or trading Ethereum. I mean, it's insane.
It is insane.
So
You're preaching to the choir.
You're right. It's almost like we're being made fun of by the people that pulled this off, is how insane it is. Speaking of insane, here's Warren Davidson in 2018. He's at a conference that Joseph Lubin happens to be at as well.
Spectrum are we going to go? We're going to take a bite-sized chunk because if you go back to 7 Habits, they'll say, again, with the end in mind, the end is you've got a token that can be exchanged that is not a security. Bill Hinman of the SEC made a speech, and he basically communicated that there was a regulatory situation for Bitcoin and Ethereum that they no longer consider securities. What he meant, the point was they may have been securities when they were launched, but at least right now they don't see them as securities.
And once again, sorry, I accidentally turned off my recording, but I was going to say, and once again, Warren Davidson is not corrected. He gives a speech here and he says that Bill Hinman said Ethereum's not a security. Did the SEC call him up and say, "Oh, that speech you gave, no, you were wrong. That was Bill Hinman's personal opinion"? No, they did not. Because to my knowledge, he still believes it to this day. All right. In this edition of Bitcoin Maxis Gone Wild, Anthony Pompliano tweets this: Bitcoin mining is preventing environmental damage. ExxonMobil, the largest U.S. oil producer, is now diverting excess natural gas that would have been burnt, flared to mine Bitcoin. You're not serious about climate change unless you support Bitcoin mining. Now, if that is not twisting things to create your own reality, I don't know what is, folks. That is some sick thinking right there. Breaking news, Gold Telegraph. UK's Boris Johnson says there is evidence Russia is trying to get around sanctions using gold. For years, Russia and China have been stockpiling gold. Leaders should have paid more attention. The digital asset investor is paying attention, and that is why I'm buying gold in my Glint account. I'm doing it every week now, pretty much. I'm buying gold in this account because, and you got two options. You can buy it for physical delivery, which I own both physical and I have gold in my Glint account, because in the Glint account I can use my debit MasterCard that they give me to spend my gold if we have a situation or if I just want to. So what I do is I'm buying right now. I'm buying a lot. I'm stacking gold in my Glint account so that I can have spendable gold, and then I'll be doing a little bit of both actually. So I'll put this link they're one of my sponsors too. I'll put this at the top of the description as well. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family to go check out Glint.